The video documents the sentencing of Troy Adams, who was convicted of abduction, strangulation, obstructing official business, and domestic violence. The victim explains how Adams's abuse escalated over time, describing his controlling behavior and the fear she felt for herself and her children.
All right, this is State of Ohio versus Troy Adams. We're here for sentencing. Mr. Goodyear, is there a statement from the victim?
Yes, Your Honor, she is present. She would like to speak to the court.
All right.
A little bit of context. I have no doubt that that night, Troy 100% wanted to kill me. There's no doubt. It was really scary. It was like there was a demon in his eyes, or he was dead or in his eyes. I don't know. But what I think about, is what could have happened that night. And if he would have succeeded, what would have happened to my children, because they were in the home. There's no way he would have left them as witnesses. And luckily, by the grace of God and the swift response from the Mason police, it didn't escalate further. You know, this might have happened here in Warren County, but it is not the first time it's happened in Indiana. And it's always the same MO. He always takes my phone and breaks it, so I can't call for help. And then he'll physically restrain me and attack me, and it's slowly getting worse. And obviously this time it was with a gun. And then afterwards, I always get blamed for his actions. And then I am a fool and I fall for the manipulation and the love bombing. And I take him back, and that's my responsibility. You know, I hate that he's using being a veteran as an excuse, because it's not, right? I'm a veteran, and because of my training, that's what kept me alive that night. And if it was anybody else, I can't say that would have been the same. So I feel like it's not an excuse. I've never met anybody who's received more therapy and more treatment. Anger management, PTSD counseling. He's gone through a stint where he had to report a couple times a day with a breathalyzer, not quite sure what that's called. Used tons of VA resources. He's had tons of tests, neurological examinations. He's been through pain therapy. He's been through trauma groups, men's groups. And what he did was a choice. He made that choice. And he's done everything possible up until this point to avoid accountability. And that's what scares me, because in his mind, you know, still somehow it's somebody else's fault and he's not taking responsibility for his actions. It's left lasting effects on me and my kids. Not that I am complaining about this, but my daughter still sleeps with me every night, and I have to check in with her every day because she's always worried about where I am. And that was never the case before. He's never apologizes. And even last time we were in court, he violated the no contact order. You know, I'm sitting there and he's standing in front of me and professing his love. And he's not supposed to talk to me. And so that's what scares me. And the longer he's in prison, the longer I feel safe. And I think that's it.
Judge, in addition, there's a few things I wanted to point out. And I think that the victim touched on this a little bit, talking about the amount of treatment the defendant's already received in his lifetime. And, you read the PSI, and what does he say in the PSI? He says, wow, I don't know that guy that did that. That was Drinking Troy that did that. That's not me. Well, the problem is Drinking Troy's been doing this for years, and he's never changed his behavior. He was convicted of OBI in 2008 in California, convicted of OBI in 2015 in Indiana. He's had other charges that have been either we don't know the disposition to, or they've been dismissed. And then, in addition, Your Honor, in 2018, as was alluded to by the victim, he was charged with felony domestic battery, felony strangulation, interference with the reporting of a crime, and resisting law enforcement in Delaware Circuit Court in Indiana, which is the exact same charges we have here. He went through Veterans Court there and received all the treatment you heard the victim tell you about. And then here we are, where he does the exact same thing again. And I don't think that someone who has so clearly been engaged in criminal activity related to alcohol use in the past should be able to come into court and say, you know what, don't punish me as much because that was when I was drunk. That really isn't me. I don't think that's a viable excuse. In addition, Judge, I will tell you, I listened for a long time to Mr. Adams' jail calls and his home wave calls with his daughter and other people. And he has consistently maintained that it's not his fault that he was drinking. He claimed over and over and over again that the victim gave him drinks in cans that look like flavored water that he drinks. And somehow he had no idea he was drinking alcohol. And all of a sudden, he blacks out and doesn't know what happened. So he has been blaming the victim the entire time. Now, he won't say that to you, and he won't say that in the PSI, but that's what he said consistently for quite a while. And he's shaking his head to me, yes, right now. So apparently he still believes that. Judge, I think that this is extremely troubling behavior. He held the victim at gunpoint. He strangled her to where she couldn't breathe, which is exactly what the strangling part he's done before. And I think this is just a series of escalations that ultimately will lead to him causing serious injury or killing someone he's in a relationship with. I think it's pretty clear that he's not going to stop this behavior. That being the case, the state would ask the court to impose a very substantial prison sentence. In this case, Judge, he's facing, he was convicted of abduction with a 3-year firearm specification, and strangulation with a 3-year firearm specification, and obstructing official business are 3 felonies, and then misdemeanor domestic violence. Because these felonies are not the type that would require the application of 2914B1G, the 2 firearm specifications would merge. So really, he only faces the imposition of 1 3-year firearm specification. The minimum sentence he faces is 3.5 years. So 6 months on one of the felonies and then 3 years on the firearm specification. But I don't think 3.5 years, Judge, in these circumstances is nearly sufficient.
In his past, Troy worked for a long time as a night manager at Walmart, store manager. Disabilities ultimately made that job impossible because he was struck by lightning for the 2nd time. That's not in dispute. I believe that was confirmed. Served in the U.S. Army from 82 to 85, also in the reserves from 86 to 90. Received an honorable discharge from the U.S. Army. He did undergo a significant trauma there, not war-related trauma, and I would prefer not to air it here in open court, but
I think I recall.
Troy has a drinking problem because that doesn't go away. The criminal record would indicate, as well as everything the court has heard, when he's drinking, he's a bad guy. When he's not drinking, he's not a bad guy. On this particular day, Mr. Adams did not purchase or obtain these. He was drinking. He didn't purchase or obtain those for himself. Just a brief mention of the 2018 case that was dismissed out of Indiana. If somebody has a presumption of innocence while a case is pending, then certainly they should have a presumption of innocence when that case is dismissed.
First thing I want to do, because I want to give this to Angie. There's a $23,800 cash for a basement and a $25,000 loan for the basement at 5848 Running Fox Lane in Mason, Ohio. And a $3,500 payment that she made back to me. And then I paid $45,300 myself. I don't want her to pay me the $45,000 that she owes me. I'm just going to go ahead and take care of it myself. And I put paid in full and I signed it. So she doesn't have to worry about that anymore. And she can just forget about paying me back on that. Because it was never about money for me and her. It was just about, I wanted to be her husband and be a family and not just be together I wanted to complete the family, but she never would. It was just hard. As I think about the day that we're reading off my charges, I was mortified because I don't remember anything. The last thing I remember is trying to get to you and Alexia on the 18th hole. I saw you two walking on the 18th hole where they were giving stuff away in the pizza thing. I was getting dizzy and I thought I was getting ready to have a seizure like I did at Dad's funeral. And before I could get to you, everything went black, and that's the last thing I remember. The next thing I remember is waking up in the front of the house and I felt like my back was broke. I was completely ashamed of myself, and I am still at a loss for words. It was like I was listening to someone else's charges. I was beside myself. I would never intentionally harm you or the children or anyone for that matter. I have known and felt brutality at the hands of others. I truly don't remember what happened, and that scares me. That was not me that night. It was the evil inside. I couldn't control me from all the trauma that I have suffered over the years. I have issues from being attacked, tied up, and sexually assaulted in the military that I recently told you about, and started to have flashbacks that past week that we talked about. So starting right now, Andrew, I'm asking you to find it in your heart to forgive me. You've never forgiven anybody for anything, and you're walking around with so much hate inside of you. I wish you would learn to forgive people, just even for the smallest things. Carrying around all that hate inside of you is killing you. I'm truly sorry you had to endure what you did. I wish we could talk because, it's important how important your feelings and desires are to me. But if this is all the closure we get, I pray you don't burn with hate towards me. I'm so sorry. I love you more than I've ever loved anybody in my life. You know you're my soulmate. I have these for you and the kids. These are poems that I have written. I haven't wrote a poem since I first went in the military. That God promised that He would heal my brain. I've talked to Him through a prophet. I've turned my life over to Jesus as my Savior, and He started to heal my brain, and I'm doing a lot better. I'm so sorry. I just miss you and the kids. I feel like I'm dying every day.
I think that's all.
Okay, thank you. I've considered the statements that have been made here today. Pre-sentence investigation report. I've considered the purposes and principles of sentencing set forth in the revised code, which are to protect the public from future crime by the offender and others, and to punish using the minimum sanctions that the court determines accomplish those purposes without imposing an unnecessary burden on state or local government resources. The court finds the defendant is not amenable to community control, and a prison is necessary to fulfill the purposes and principles of sentencing, including punishment, deterrence, and protection of the public. Probation would not adequately punish the defendant and would seriously demean what happened in this case. Therefore, the sentence is 18 months on count 1, the felony 3, 3 years on the firearm specification. On count 2, the strangulation is 18 months to run concurrent. There's a merger of the firearm specification. The domestic violence, 6 months. The obstructing official business, 12 months. Both of those are to run concurrent for a total of 54 months. This carries post-release control, which is supervision by the adult parole authority. It's mandatory for a period of up to 3 years, but not less than 1 year. If you violate the rules of post-release control, the adult parole authority could send you back to prison for 9 months per violation, up to a total of 27 months additional. If you are convicted of a new felony during that period of supervision, the court that has the new felony case can revoke post-release control, impose whatever time remains on supervision. If you have less than a year remaining on supervision, they can add a year to the sentence in the new felony case. Mr. Adams, you have a right to appeal this sentence. You have 30 days from today to file a notice of appeal. If you cannot afford an attorney will be appointed to represent you. Any document you need to be provided at no cost. Do you have any questions, sir? All right, that's all.
She stresses that despite therapy, he repeatedly avoided taking responsibility for his actions. The prosecutor outlines Adams's pattern of alcohol-related criminal behavior and notes that he consistently blamed the victim instead of accepting accountability. Based on the increasing severity of his violence, the prosecutor argues for a significant prison sentence. The defense claims Adams's behavior was driven by alcohol abuse and references his past traumas, including military sexual assault and surviving 2 lightning strikes, as factors affecting his mental state. Adams speaks in court, expressing remorse, saying he blacked out during the incident, and asking the victim for forgiveness. He states that he still loves her and says he has recently turned to Christianity. The judge ultimately sentences Adams to 54 months in prison, explaining that the punishment is necessary to hold him accountable, deter future offenses, and protect the public, along with imposing a period of mandatory post-release supervision.